There are three things that concern me the most about this upcoming Pats season. That's where we start on this episode of Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening? I'm your host, Nick Cattles. I've been covering this team for the past 16 years, born and raised in New England. Also co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles and a sports talk show host veteran. On today's episode, three things that get us the most excited about this 2025 season. And also, Mike Vrabel speaks candidly about Micah Parsons and whether or not the Pats were seriously involved in those trade talks. But first, we tell you what keeps us up at night about this football team. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Yesterday on the pod, I talked about my prediction for the 2025 season, and I predicted the Patriots would finish at 9-8. Some of you likely upset about that. Some of you completely agree with me on that. Some might actually believe I'm crazy believing that this team is going to win 9 games in 2025. I actually fixed my lips to tell you that the ceiling for this team is 11 wins. If everything worked out perfectly, 11 wins, full health, everybody plays their role. Everybody hits their potential. Drake Maye takes a big-time leap, ceiling 11 wins. But what is the floor? The floor, to me, is 7 wins. So I'm going with 9, ceiling 11, floor 7. Now, why? Why is the floor? Why is the floor at 7? Well, I'm going to tell you three things that concern me the most about this football team right now. And I feel like a broken record, but it is what it is. We've been talking about this the past couple of years, but I've got to start with the offensive line. The offensive line, it's got some questions, especially early. Left side, Will Campbell, Jared Wilson. You've got 2 rookies on the left side of your O-line trying to protect the blind side of Drake Maye. And early on, first month, month and a half, maybe even 2 months, we have to anticipate Campbell and Wilson having some struggles. They're rookies getting thrown right into the deep end of the pool. And you know that defenses are going to try them. They're going to try them early and often. Defenses are going to run stunts. They're going to run twists, play all sorts of games up front, creeper pressure, simulated pressure, all-out zero blitzes. They are going to throw the kitchen sink at Campbell and Wilson. And for at least the first month and a half, 2 months, I would just expect some errors, some mental mistakes from your rookies on the left side. But that's not it. Then we get to Garrett Bradbury, who has been a problem all camp long. Massively up and down, roller coaster, right there at center. And Bradbury wasn't very good last year in pass protection for Minnesota. And I don't know why we would think Garrett Bradbury would be great in pass protection this year. I don't know why we would even expect Garrett Bradbury to be even average at pass protection. It is what it is. He's a smaller center. He gets beat up by bigger interior defensive linemen, and it's going to happen again in 2025. So I've got questions about Garrett Bradbury's pass protection. I've got questions about Jared Wilson's pass protection because at times, especially late in camp, it became a little bit leaky. So those are all things that we look at. And then the big picture is that you have 4 out of 5 of your offensive linemen playing together for the first time. Now, yeah, they've had a camp. They've had some joint practices. But game number 1 against the Raiders, it is going to be the first time that 4 of these 5 individuals played together as a cohesive unit. The only guy that's left over is Micah Parsons from 2024. Just lots of change. A new man leading the offensive line in Doug Marrone. So that's concern number 1, offensive line, especially the first 6 to 8 weeks of this season. Second concern is depth or lack thereof. You can look at this team and you can feel pretty decent about roster spot number 4 or 5 to roster spot number 30 to 32. But once you get to 32 to 53, you've got a lot of issues with the depth of this team. This team is thin in multiple spots. Let's look at linebacker. Robert Spillane, you've got the age question and how he plays so hard and so physical and so violent. He's going to be a fan favorite, but he's also going to be shot out of a cannon every single time he's out there. And he's, closer to the end than he is to the beginning of his NFL career. So you've got some age. You've got some age with Jelani Tavai. You've got injury issues with Tavai. You've got injury issues with Marte Mapu. And then you look at potential. Mapu, yeah, he's got potential, but that might not be fulfilled. We can feel decent about Mapu and the possibility of him covering tight ends and doing a good job on the second level in coverage. He had a good preseason game against the Giants, 2s and 3s. But when you stack it all up together on the second level of the defense between age, injury, and pretty much unknown, Christian Ellis, you could say, is not a total unknown, but he played less than 50% of the snaps last year. So linebacker, I'm looking at offensive tackle, Marcus Bryant. Is he going to be able to do the job as the top reserve tackle on this team? And maybe he's not asked to do that by week 3 or 4. Maybe the Patriots make a change there. They pull somebody up from the practice squad, and you're not so worried about Marcus Bryant, holding his water at right tackle or left tackle. But right now, you've got Marcus Bryant and Fedarian Lowe as your backup tackles. And I know it's tough to find tackle depth in the NFL. It's tough to find tackle depth in college. But when I'm looking at this team and I'm talking about the lack of depth, what happens if Will Campbell goes down with an injury, God forbid? Are you content with Fedarian Lowe? I'm not. What if Morgan Moses goes down? He's 34, by the way, coming off an injury and surgery. What happens if he goes down? Are you supremely confident in Marcus Bryant being able to fill that spot? Then you look at tight end. We've talked about it. Hooper, Hunter, Henry, and bust. I don't know. Hunter, Henry, Austin Hooper. Beyond that, Jack Westover. Some would argue, and I tend to not disagree with this, some would argue Westover is not even an NFL player right now at this point. He would not make a lot of rosters across the league, but he's on this one. And then you've got the injuries at corner with Gonzalez and Davis and how that's going to eat into your depth if those guys continue to be banged up, especially Davis, who has the long track record. You need health on this football team. The third concern, big plays against this defense. Now, I think this defense could be good. I think this defense could be borderline top 10 in the NFL this year. However, this defensive scheme is so aggressive. They scream downhill. They play violent and physical. They play fast and athletic, and that's fun to watch. But you also have to understand, you also have to embrace the idea that the faster you play and the more aggressive that you are, the bigger plays you're going to give up. And we've seen that in the preseason. We've seen that in joint practices. You look at the tight ends causing issues. You look at the screen game causing issues. You look at some plays over the top causing some issues. The more aggressive you are, the more open you are to give up big plays, chunk plays. The Bill Belichick's old, get the bleep back, play safe, bend, don't break, death by 1,000 paper cuts, all that stuff. It's different now with Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams. And with that change becomes more vulnerability to give up that one big play or two big plays, and all of a sudden the game has changed dramatically. I also think, defense against the tight ends. I mentioned they made some plays in the joint practices, made some plays in the preseason, scored a number of touchdowns in those preseason games. Who's going to cover the tight ends? Who's going to have that assignment? Is it Marcus Jones? Too small. Craig Woodson, rookie, lot on his plate. The linebackers, are they going to be able to handle the coverage? That's when Marte Mapu comes up. Any of the other cornerbacks? Sounds like the Patriots defense, they don't necessarily want to match up their cornerbacks with specific players. And if that holds, who's playing Brock Bowers week 1? Who's defending him? So those are the three concerns. Offensive line, especially early, the lack of depth, and this defense giving up some big plays due to its aggressiveness this season. But not everything concerns me. Not everything concerns me. I'm actually excited for a number of reasons for this upcoming season. I'll give you my top 3 reasons next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. Let's talk about a moment that defined the excitement surrounding one player, TreVeyon Henderson. It took one single solitary play in the preseason to see everything that's been said and written about Henderson as he took the opening kickoff of the preseason to the house against the Washington Commanders. As we get ready for the 2025 season, we get ready for TreVeyon Henderson, maybe being the best and most explosive rookie the Patriots have had in quite some time. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. Their Trademaster perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, promo code SHCollege5. Real people, real service. We have an important request here from our friends at the Locked On Podcast Network and your friends from the Locked On Podcast Network. We want to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. And this is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. All right, legit excited about this team. I'll give you 3 reasons why. I just gave you in the last segment 3 concerns that I have. Let's flip this on its side, and let's look at 3 things I am excited about. I think this team's going to be competitive. I think they're going to be a mostly clean operation, and I've got 3 things that excite me. Let's start with the rookie class, the 2025 rookie class. You just heard my read from Mazda about TreVeyon Henderson and what he did the first time he touched the football in the preseason, taking it to the house against the Commanders. And his ceiling is legit. And if you don't believe me, just look around. Google search TreVeyon Henderson. Read some of the stories that are out there. If you don't want to, I'll save you the time. Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic wrote about Henderson. She wrote, watching Henderson for 2 days at Vikings-Patriots joint practices this summer absolutely impressed me. Henderson is quiet but moves like a much more experienced veteran, especially in pass protection, and seems on the doorstep of an explosive gain at any moment. He should be a go-to outlet in the passing game immediately for Drake Maye and could make waves on special teams. One coach I spoke with said Henderson has the makings of a star. Jeff Howe also wrote about Henderson recently. The Patriots are ecstatic over Henderson, so don't be surprised if he turns into their lead option. Dan Graziano of ESPN heard the same thing. He wrote at ESPN.com, don't be surprised if Henderson is the team's #1 running back all season. Henderson has been the most explosive element of the offense throughout camp, and the coaching staff is smart enough to know New England needs some explosiveness. There's some sentiment in Foxborough that Henderson is going to be the type of player they don't want to take off the field. Everybody's talking about him. Everybody's writing about him. The coaching staff, people at Gillette, are certainly not afraid to talk about him and leak information about how excited they are about his upcoming rookie season. I would be concerned that this is all overhyped, but honestly, it's tough to believe that after watching Henderson in the preseason and seeing what he did during joint practices in camp. So I am so excited to watch TreVeyon Henderson in 2025. I'm also excited to watch Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. I know I talked about last segment, expect some early struggles, and I do expect some early struggles, but I also expect some early highs from both of these guys. I do think with the more reps that they get, the more time they play together, the more comfortable they are in their skin at the NFL level, they will grow into good, if not very good, young offensive linemen. And I'm going to find it fun to watch that left side of the O-line get better as the season progresses. I'm also going to have a lot of fun watching Kyle Williams progress. I'm not sure how much he's going to play in the first month, 6 weeks, maybe even 2 months. A lot of receivers fighting for some time in New England. But I really feel that by the end of the season, we're going to look at Kyle Williams and feel confident that he's going to be a legitimate contributor to this offense for years to come. We saw it. We saw it throughout the preseason. He was gaining momentum before the injury. Well, he's been back now. He's ready. He's healthy. And I think it's going to be maybe a slower progression for him than the offensive lineman because he's not going to play as much, but he's still going to show that development and that improvement. And I think he's going to help this football team. Craig Woodson, I feel like he's the ultimate chess piece in the secondary. And that's a lot to ask. And he might miss a couple of assignments early. He might blow a coverage. He might make a couple of mistakes. Again, we have to be patient with the young players. But I do believe that Craig Woodson, by the second half of this season is going to be dependable. And he's going to start making some plays. And he's going to help the back end of this defense. So this 2025 draft class, I was excited about it in late April when it happened about 4 months ago. And I am as excited, if not more excited, to see them play when kickoff comes up on Sunday against the Raiders. Another thing I'm excited about, Drake Maye and Josh McDaniels in this marriage. I do believe in Drake Maye's tools. I do believe he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the league, and I feel like he had a good camp. And when you look at the latest from Jeff Howe of The Athletic, Jeff spoke to 31 executives and coaches. I mentioned this poll during yesterday's episode, talking about Josh McDaniels and, the Patriots and how their expectations, a lot of people around the league feel like they're going to exceed those expectations. Well, there was another question in that Jeff Howe article. And the question was, you're starting a franchise from scratch. Who are the top 3 quarterbacks you take? 31 responses. Josh Allen led everybody. Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow were second. Then you had Jaden Daniels. Then you had Lamar Jackson. Then you had Justin Herbert. And then you had Drake Maye. You had Drake Maye tied with C.J. Stroud and Baker Mayfield. So people in the game feel like Maye has all that potential. And a voter said to Jeff Howe, quote, Maye has every physical trait you'd want, plus the competitiveness. And we've talked about the raw potential, the raw tools, but also some of the intangibles that he has. The voter said, quote, Maye got better over the course of the year. It's probably too early to put him on that list, but if you're going young and counting the contracts, I'd take him. And Drake Maye has looked comfortable with the offense, which is a pretty significant step early on of this 2025 season. How would he get through the camp? He looks like he's comfortable. He'll have Josh McDaniels in his ear pre-snap, which I think is something that is substantial. I think that will help him. I think McDaniels will run the football effectively. This offensive line will block for the run effectively. I think Josh McDaniels will get guys uncovered with his scheme at receiver. So I'm excited to see Maye and McDaniels. And lastly, I'm excited to see the pass rush. What was non-existent last year. Christian Barmore had a really good camp. Milton Williams had a good camp, especially when he was next to Barmore. K'Lavon Chaisson was a revelation during this camp. He was absolutely tremendous from beginning to end. And his pal across from him, Harold Landry, showed signs of the old Harold Landry. Andrew Callahan recently posted, it's been close to nonstop pressure from Landry this summer. Landry, who looks ready for regular season football, his first step is one of, if not the fastest on the team. And Terrell Williams said that Landry looks like a guy with something to prove. The Patriots were 32nd in sacks with 28 last year. That is laughable, and I think that is going to be improved by a bunch. Barmore, Williams, Chaisson, Landry, White off the bench, maybe a little bit of Elijah Ponder mixed in. The scheme that's going to send some people, try to fool offensive lines. I think this pass rush is going to be fun to watch in 2025. Mike Vrabel takes us behind the scenes of the Micah Parsons conversation in New England. That's coming up next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. And if you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time. It's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. Whether you're playing for the first time ever or a veteran creating your millionth league, check out Yahoo Fantasy. With season kickoff on September 4th, it's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. If you prefer the classics, kind of like me, get your crew together and go ahead and get to a private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league. The easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so do not wait. Start your league now. Draft at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. It fits however you like to bet. Player props, got it. Building a same-game parlay, got it. Or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Again, that's FanDuel.com. And don't forget, new customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So Mike Vrabel was on the Greg Hill Show, WEEI, on Tuesday, and he told us all the Patriots were not in on the Micah Parsons trade conversations. And I thought Vrabel was more open than anybody would have expected him to be during this interview. He said, we continue to have conversations about all players that are available. A great player, but that wasn't something we were really invested a lot of time or resources in. I think when you just try to look at what we feel like is best for us right now, that wasn't entertaining that specific transaction. He talked about the depth. The depth of the roster has not been through our draft the last handful of years, and that has to change. We all know that. We'll focus on that when we get there in April. Right now, it's putting guys in roles that have some versatility and building the game day roster and these different things. I think the best teams in the league draft well. They develop their players, they re-sign them, and then they carefully choose the players they want to add in free agency. I'm not sure if Mike Vrabel was recently listening to some of my content, but a lot of what he just said is some of the things that we have said. The best organizations draft and develop. They re-sign their players. They re-sign their players early to make sure those extensions get done. They don't drag their feet. And when they carefully choose the players that they want, they do that in free agency. And if you want to make a deal, you've got to carefully choose the player. So I agree with pretty much everything Vrabel just said. However, when I look at Micah Parsons specifically, and we have that draft and develop conversation, I feel like Parsons being 26 years old changes the math. At least it changes my math. You're not trading for somebody who's 29, 30 years old. You're not trading for somebody who's going to give you 2 or 3 years of their best years or 2 of their 3 years of their final years. You're trading for somebody who literally is walking into his prime, a generational player, some would argue the best defensive player in football. And the fact he just turned 26 makes me feel like if you're going to swing a deal for somebody, swinging a deal for someone like Micah Parsons makes sense, even if you're the Patriots, because he should give you 6, 7 great years. I mean, this guy should be one of the best players in football for the next 4 or 5 years at least. And when you talk about draft picks and trading picks, let's not get this twisted. The 2026 pick that you would trade for Micah Parsons, that's Micah Parsons. Would you rather have the 2026 first-round pick or Micah Parsons? Now, you have to add the 2027. So you're really, to me, the way I look at it is you're trading a player and you're trading a first-round pick for Parsons. Because that swap of 26, that is straight up for Parsons, in essence. He's going to fill that void of that pick in 2026. And I know what I'm getting from Parsons. I know he's one of the best players in the league. I don't know that about anybody in next year's draft class, and I have no idea where I will be in next year's draft class. I have no idea if I'm picking the top 10, the middle of the pack, late first round. So for Parsons specifically, I would entertain that conversation, and that's why I pushed for the Patriots to get involved in those talks, because I think at 26 years old, generational player, he raises your ceiling quickly, and he's young enough to give you years of great production. Now, there are questions, and I wonder if part of this was the culture fit. Was part of it the culture fit? You know, Vrabel talks about having people that they want, you know, someone that they feel comfortable with. And Albert Breer of SI wrote recently about Parsons, quote, "There is a difference between this negotiation and the previous 3, talk about Zach Martin, CeeDee Lamb, and Dak Prescott. All 3 of those guys, according to Burt, were or are very popular in the locker room. Burt wrote that's not the case with Parsons, who has rankled teammates in different ways, seen by some as egotistical and self-centered." Is that part of the story here? Of course, Vrabel's not going to go out there and tell us that. Burt wrote, his podcast has created issues, too, that go all the way up to quarterback Dak Prescott. So the podcast's causing problems. Did Vrabel look at it and say, I'm not really in love with the idea of trading for someone like Parsons, who some believe has a big ego, some believe he is self-centered? Will his podcast cause issues? Will he be a problem with some of his teammates? We want to make sure that people are getting along. Now, it doesn't have to be the Boy Scouts. As Vrabel has said, you don't need 53 Boy Scouts, but maybe this caused some hesitation. And when you look back, you know, I was researching today. Cowboys Zone is a chat board. It's a fan site. It's a chat board. And somebody listed the weaknesses from Parsons' draft profile, and there was high maintenance mentioned, immaturity, runs himself out of position with unnecessary early changes. So he freelanced a little too often. Film study, needed to get better at that point when he was getting into the draft. May need guidance from coaches and veteran players. And the person commented that looking at the pre-draft profile 3 or 4 years later, it's amazingly accurate. So maybe it was some of that. Maybe the Patriots looked at Parsons and said, we're going to have to pay that guy $45+ million a year. Once we give him that kind of a contract, what impact does that have on the locker room? The Patriots were obviously comfortable giving Milton Williams that big deal they gave him in the offseason, but they feel like Williams has the work ethic, has the personality, fits the culture that they want to establish in New England. And I would love to give Mike Vrabel truth serum and ask him, does he feel like Parsons, whether or not he would be a culture fit this early on? Maybe 2 or 3 years from now, he would feel like Parsons would fit better because he'd have established more But maybe this early, he doesn't feel comfortable giving somebody 45, 46, 47 million a year like Parsons and saying, all right, he's the guy now, because that's the statement you make. He would be the guy. You also look at the closest fit for a trade because it's obvious the Cowboys wanted a big-time interior defensive lineman. They got Kenny Clark from the Packers, who's a Pro Bowler. I mean, you're probably looking at Christian Barmore as the closest fit to make a deal happen. That Pro Bowl potential, interior D-line. Now, of course, Barmore has questions from last year's blood clots. Would Dallas want to make that deal? I don't know. But if it's Barmore and 2 firsts and Barmore's healthy, that's not as easy of a yes. That wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Thank you for making us your first listen and for being an everydayer. Reach out to me on Twitter at NickCRadio. And don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for making Locked On Patriots your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL season previews on Locked On NFL. Everything you need to know about the NFL season. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.